Good evening, dear listeners. As you settle down in your most comfortable space, I invite you to take a deep breath and close your eyes. Tonight, we embark on a tranquil journey through the gentle, often overlooked corridors of history. Our focus will be on a rather unique and specific topic: the tedious history of Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and melting temperature specifications. You may find it hard to believe, but even the most mundane aspects of history can offer a soothing balm for the mind. Imagine the flickering glow of candles illuminating grand Byzantine halls, casting soft shadows on marble pillars, and creating a serene ambience for emperors and their courtiers. As you listen, allow the rhythmic cadence of my voice to lull you into a state of relaxation, guiding you away from the noise of the outside world and into a realm of soft, historical whispers. Throughout our time together, we will explore the intricate processes that govern the procurement of candle wax in the Byzantine Empire, a task that was far from simple. You will learn about the various materials that were used, how they were sourced, and the meticulous standards that were established for melting temperatures, standards that ensured the long-lasting burn of these precious candles. We will delve into the detailed documentation and the careful methods that were employed to maintain quality and consistency. As we navigate this gentle exploration, I encourage you to visualize the artisans meticulously crafting candles by hand, their skilled hands working in harmony with the natural elements. Picture the fragrant aroma of beeswax filling the air, the soft warmth of the candlelight creating a serene atmosphere, and the tranquil sounds of the Byzantine court resonating in the background. We will also touch upon the cultural significance of candles in Byzantine society, illuminating their role in religious ceremonies and daily life. Candles were not merely sources of light, they were symbols of devotion, hope, and continuity. With each flicker of the flame, we will connect the past to the present, reminding ourselves of the enduring beauty found in even the smallest details of historical life. As we prepare to dive deeper into this fascinating subject, I encourage you to let go of any lingering thoughts or worries. Allow the soothing cadence of this narrative to wash over you like the gentle waves of a serene sea, bringing with it a sense of peace and contentment. Let your mind drift like a feather in the wind, free from the burdens of the day as we embark on this calming exploration together. So, dear listeners, as we transition into the heart of our content, may you find comfort in the knowledge that history, no matter how tedious it may seem, is filled with moments of grace and tranquility. Let us now illuminate the path of Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and the meticulous specifications that governed their melting temperatures. As we journey through this unique aspect of history, may your thoughts remain light, your spirit serene, and your heart at ease. The history of Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and melting temperature specifications is a remarkably intricate and largely unremarkable aspect of the administrative and domestic life of the Byzantine Empire. The earliest records concerning the procurement of candle wax date back to the reign of Emperor Justinian I, approximately between 527 and 565 CE. The city of Constantinople, as the capital and the administrative heart of the empire, served as the primary location for these activities. In the 6th century, the production of candles was a task primarily undertaken by local artisans, whose workshops were often located in the vicinity of the city's major thoroughfares, such as the Misi, a central road that traversed the city from the Golden Horn to the Hippodrome. These workshops were characterized by their modest architectural structures, typically single-story buildings with wooden beams and clay tiles, which housed the necessary tools for candle making. The wax utilized in these candles was predominantly derived from beeswax, a material highly valued for its quality and burning properties. The Byzantine imperial court maintained a system of procurement that involved both direct purchases from local producers and the establishment of trade agreements with foreign suppliers. Notable figures in this procurement process included the logothetes tou genikou, or the finance minister, who oversaw the budget allocated for the acquisition of wax. It is recorded that in 538 CE, a certain Theophilus, holding the office of logothetes, initiated a series of inspections of local wax production facilities to ensure adherence to the quality standards mandated by the imperial court. The administrative procedures involved in the procurement of candle wax were methodically bureaucratic. Local governors, known as strategoi, were required to submit detailed reports regarding the availability of wax and the capabilities of local artisans. These reports were compiled into annals, which documented the annual yield of beeswax and served as a basis for the allocation of resources. Such records were meticulously maintained, often written on parchment, and housed within the imperial archives located in the Great Palace of Constantinople, a sprawling complex that featured ornately decorated halls and extensive storage areas for governmental documents. As the empire expanded, the demand for candle wax grew, leading to the establishment of additional procurement channels. By the early 8th century, the Byzantine bureaucracy had formalized a series of regulations concerning the melting temperature of wax, which was deemed essential for maintaining the integrity of the candles produced for liturgical purposes. This was particularly important given that Byzantine Christians relied heavily on candles for religious ceremonies, with specific rituals requiring candles of varying sizes and melting characteristics. The melting temperature specifications were codified in a series of edicts issued during the reign of Emperor Constantine VI, 780 to 797 CE. The edicts outlined the acceptable range of melting temperatures for beeswax candles, which was set between 62 degrees Celsius and 65 degrees Celsius. This range was empirically determined through a series of methodical experiments conducted by the imperial court's appointed chemists, who utilized rudimentary thermometric devices made from mercury-filled glass tubes. The results of these experiments were recorded in the Codex de Serra, a comprehensive manuscript that detailed the characteristics of different waxes, including their melting points and combustion properties. Daily routines surrounding candle production were labor-intensive and closely regulated. Artisans typically began their day at dawn, gathering the necessary materials, which included beeswax, wicks made from linen or cotton, and various additives to modify the burning properties of the candles. The wax was heated in large cauldrons, often situated over open flames, and artisans were required to monitor the temperature closely to ensure compliance with the established specifications. Failure to adhere to these temperature guidelines could result in candles that burned too quickly or produced excessive smoke, which was deemed unacceptable for use in the imperial palaces. In addition to the artisans, a cadre of inspectors, known as the Syri Custodes, was appointed by the imperial court to oversee. The meticulous nature of the Byzantine candle wax procurement procedures underscores the broader imperial philosophy that permeated all levels of governance. The commitment to quality, standardization, and detailed record-keeping reflected an administration that sought to maintain its authority and prestige through every aspect of daily life, even in matters as seemingly trivial as the production of wax candles. In conclusion, the Byzantine Empire's approach to candle wax procurement, from construction methods and maintenance procedures to financial records and technical specifications, illustrates a level of detail and commitment that transcended mere functionality. This dedication not only ensured the provision of high-quality candles for liturgical and practical purposes but also exemplified the broader administrative ethos of an empire that sought to uphold its standards in the face of both internal and external challenges. The construction methods employed in the production of candle wax within the Byzantine Empire were characterized by a reliance on specific materials and techniques that evolved over the centuries. The primary ingredients for candle wax included beeswax, tallow, and, occasionally, resin, each of which contributed to the final product's burning qualities and scent. The favored beeswax was collected from hives situated in regions favorable to Apis mellifera, particularly in areas such as Bithynia and Thrace, where the climate and flora supported abundant beekeeping. The initial stage of candle production began with the collection of raw materials. The wax was derived primarily from the capping of honeycombs, which were harvested during the late summer months of July and August, when the bees were at their most productive. The established method for extracting the wax involved heating the honeycombs in large cauldrons made of bronze or copper, often measuring approximately 1 meter in diameter and 0.5 meters in height. Through this process, beeswax would melt and rise to the surface, where it could be skimmed off and subsequently filtered through linen cloth to remove impurities. Once purified, the wax was then poured into molds made of clay or metal, shaped to form various dimensions of candles. Common sizes included the standard 30 cm long votive candle, with a diameter ranging from 2 to 3 centimeters. The molds were designed with specific dimensions to ensure uniformity, thus facilitating the empire's extensive liturgical requirements. The molds themselves were often intricately crafted, featuring designs that reflected Christian iconography, which served both an aesthetic and functional purpose. Maintenance procedures for candle production required careful monitoring of both the quality of materials and the cleanliness of facilities. Regular inspections were mandated, with a schedule established for the cleaning of cauldrons and molds. This included a thorough scrubbing with a mixture of sand and water to prevent the accumulation of burnt residues, which could affect the purity of subsequent batches. Workers were expected to maintain a strict adherence to cleanliness, as any contamination could lead to diminished burning qualities or failure to meet liturgical standards. Financial records pertaining to candle wax procurement and production were meticulously maintained by the imperial treasury. Beginning in the year 1045, a standardized ledger system was instituted, which documented the costs associated with the acquisition of raw materials, labor wages, and production expenses. The average cost of beeswax during this period fluctuated between 8 to 10 solidi per kilogram, with tallow generally being less expensive, ranging from 4 to 6 solidi per kilogram. These records also detailed the quantity of wax produced, the number of candles manufactured, and the distribution channels utilized, particularly noting the allocation of candles to various churches and monasteries across the empire. Personnel involved in the candle production process were organized into specific roles, each with defined responsibilities. The role of the wax master, or kappa eta rho omicron pi omicron iota, karapoios, was central to the operation. This individual was responsible for overseeing the entire production process, ensuring that both the quality of materials and the adherence to production standards were upheld. The wax master typically commanded a salary of approximately 12 solidi per month. Assisting the wax master were skilled laborers, known as kappa eta rho omicron kappa pi omicron iota, karakapoi, who were tasked with the actual pouring and molding of the candles. These laborers earned a wage of around 6 solidi per month, reflecting their specialized skills. In addition to the laborers, a group of apprentices participated in the process, usually between the ages of 12 and 16, who were trained in the craft under the guidance of the wax master. This apprenticeship lasted for a period of 2 to 3 years, culminating in a formal examination of their skills. Successful apprentices would then ascend to the rank of laborer, contributing to the continuity of expertise within the trade. Technical specifications for candle production were strictly enforced, particularly as they pertained to the melting temperature of wax. The preferred melting point for beeswax was established at approximately 62 to 65 degrees Celsius, while tallow exhibited a slightly lower melting temperature of 42 to 45 degrees Celsius. These specifications were critical, as the consistency and burning characteristics of the candles were directly influenced by the melting point. The production facilities were equipped with thermometric devices, often rudimentary in nature, that allowed for the monitoring of temperature during the melting process. Moreover, the candle's burning time was also a matter of specification. Standard votive candles were expected to burn for a minimum of 4 hours, while larger altar candles, which could be up to 1 meter in height and 8 centimeters in diameter, were designed to sustain a continuous burn for a duration of up to 48 hours. To achieve these burning times, careful attention was paid to the ratio of beeswax to tallow, as well as the wick material, which was typically made from flax or cotton. Wicks were expected to be of a specific thickness, approximately 3 millimeters in diameter, to facilitate proper combustion without excessive smoke production. The Byzantine candlemaking industry was also influenced by broader economic factors, including trade relations with neighboring regions. The importation of certain materials, particularly high-quality beeswax from regions such as Egypt and the Levant, was documented as early as the 9th century. Trade routes established during the reign of Emperor Basil II, 976-1025, facilitated the movement of wax, which was sometimes subject to tariffs that were carefully recorded in imperial financial documents. As the empire faced various challenges, including military incursions and economic instability, the candle production sector adapted by diversifying its supply sources. For instance, the introduction of alternative materials, such as paraffin derived from mineral oil, began to emerge in the later periods of the empire, although this was not widely adopted until the 12th century. Throughout the Byzantine period, the standardization of candle production practices was crucial for maintaining the empire's liturgical requirements and public services. The consistent quality of candles produced was regarded as a reflection of the empire's organizational capabilities and dedication to religious observance. Candle wax procurement procedures became emblematic of the Byzantine administrative ethos, as the empire endeavored to regulate even the most mundane aspects of daily life. In conclusion, the Byzantine candle wax procurement procedures and their associated technical specifications reveal a remarkable level of detail and organization that permeated through all aspects of this industry. From the construction methods and materials used to the maintenance procedures, financial records, personnel roles, and technical specifications, the Byzantine Empire demonstrated a meticulous approach to candle production that transcended mere utility and echoed the broader administrative ambitions of a society striving for coherence and stability amidst the challenges of its time. The legacy of these practices continues to inform contemporary understandings of historical production methodologies and the socio-economic structures that support them. The construction methods and materials employed in the Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures were characterized by a systematic approach to resource acquisition and production. The primary raw material for candle production was beeswax, known for its superior burning qualities and aesthetic appeal. In the early Byzantine period, approximately 330 AD, the majority of beeswax was sourced from hives maintained in the provinces of Thrace and Macedonia, where the climate and flora were conducive to beekeeping. The Byzantine government established a series of apiaries, designated as apiarial estates, which were carefully monitored and documented. The construction of these apiaries followed standardized designs derived from earlier Hellenistic traditions, with hexagonal structures measuring approximately 3 meters in height and 2 meters in diameter. The walls were typically made from locally sourced timber, with the interior lined with clay to maintain humidity levels favorable for bee activity. Each apiary was equipped with a series of entry points, allowing bees to access the surrounding floral resources while minimizing the risk of predation by larger fauna. By 600 AD, records indicate that the Byzantine Empire had expanded its network of apiaries to include over 300 facilities across its territories. In the production phase of candle making, the wax was often transported in clay amphorae, each holding approximately 30 liters. These containers were designed with robust handles for ease of transport, and their capacity allowed for efficient distribution to various workshops located in urban centers such as Constantinople and Thessalonica. The workshops themselves were constructed with an eye toward functionality. They typically measured 6 meters by 8 meters, featuring large open spaces for melting wax. The melting of beeswax was a critical process, governed by specific temperature specifications to ensure optimal quality. Beeswax has a melting point ranging from 62 degrees Celsius to 65 degrees Celsius, 144 degrees Fahrenheit to 149 degrees Fahrenheit, and maintaining this temperature was paramount to avoid degradation of the wax's chemical structure. The Byzantine candle makers, referred to as candelarii, utilized clay crucibles heated over wood or charcoal fires to achieve the necessary melting conditions. The crucibles, often made from terracotta, could hold up to 10 liters of melted wax at one time. The melting process itself would take approximately 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the ambient temperature and the intensity of the heat source. Maintenance procedures for the workshops were regimented and meticulous. Each workshop was required to undergo routine inspections every fortnight to ensure compliance with imperial standards. The tools utilized in the candle-making process, including molds and stirring rods, were subject to regular cleaning protocols to prevent contamination and maintain quality. The Candelarii were trained to inspect their tools for wear and damage, with replacements mandated at intervals not exceeding 3 months. Additionally, the workshops were equipped with ventilation systems designed to mitigate the accumulation of smoke and fumes, a factor that was documented as a cause of worker fatigue and decreased productivity. Financial records and costs associated with wax procurement and candle production were meticulously documented by the imperial treasury. In the year 780 AD, the cost of procuring beeswax was recorded at 1 solidus per kilogram, a substantial expense given that a typical imperial order required upwards of 1,200 kilograms annually. The records indicate that by the early 9th century, the Byzantine government had instituted a subsidy program to offset the costs of wax procurement, allowing for the continued production of candles for both public and ecclesiastical use. Detailed financial ledgers from this period reveal that the overall expenses for a single workshop, including wages, raw materials, and maintenance, averaged around 300 solidi per year. The wages for Candelarii were set at 2 solidi per week, which was considered a respectable income compared to other trades. A Candelarius was expected to produce approximately 500 candles per week, with each candle weighing around 200 grams. Thus, the total output per workshop was estimated at 26,000 candles annually, representing a significant contribution to the economy of the Byzantine Empire. The personnel structure within the candle-making workshops was hierarchical and defined. Each workshop was overseen by a master candelarius, whose job description included the management of production schedules, quality control, and training of apprentices. These master candelarii, who often held their positions for several decades, were expected to possess a thorough understanding of wax properties, melting techniques, and candle design. Apprentices, generally starting at the age of 12, would train for a minimum of 5 years, during which time they would learn to handle tools, maintain equipment, and assist in the melting and molding processes. Supporting roles within the workshops included laborers responsible for the transportation of materials, as well as administrative clerks tasked with maintaining financial records and inventory lists. These clerks typically operated under the auspices of the imperial treasury, ensuring that all transactions were properly documented and reported. The meticulous nature of these financial records allowed for the tracking of wax prices and fluctuations over time, enabling the government to make informed decisions regarding subsidies and resource allocation. Technical specifications pertaining to the production of candles were rigorously defined within imperial legislation. The standard size for ceremonial candles, which were commonly used in religious observances, was established at approximately 1 meter in height and 7 centimeters in diameter. It was mandated that these candles be composed of 100% beeswax, with no additives permitted. Additional specifications included the requirement for each candle to burn for a minimum of 12 hours, a benchmark that necessitated precise control over the wax melting process and molding techniques. Candles produced for secular use varied in size and composition, often incorporating tallow or other less expensive waxes for mass production purposes. These candles, while not as esteemed as their beeswax counterparts, were nevertheless essential to the daily lives of Byzantine citizens. The specifications for these candles often permitted a diameter of 5 centimeters and a height of 30 centimeters, with a minimum burn time of 4 hours. The relationship between the workshop production and broader economic conditions was complex and multifaceted. Fluctuations in the price of beeswax, often influenced by climatic conditions affecting bee populations, could directly impact the operational capacity of workshops. For instance, records from 860 AD indicate a significant drop in wax availability due to adverse weather conditions, leading to a price increase of 50% within a single fiscal year. In response, the government implemented measures to ration wax, thereby preserving supply for the most critical ceremonial functions. In conclusion, the Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and melting temperature specifications reflect a highly organized and regulated industry that served both religious and secular needs. The methods of construction, maintenance, financial oversight, personnel management, and technical specifications collectively contributed to a system that was both efficient and robust, capable of adapting to the challenges presented by economic fluctuations and societal demands. The legacy of these practices underscores the importance of meticulous documentation and standardized processes in shaping the economic landscape of the Byzantine Empire. Such practices have continued to resonate through the ages, informing contemporary approaches to production methodologies and resource management. The Byzantine Empire, with its elaborate bureaucratic structure and intricate trade networks, developed a comprehensive system for the procurement, processing, and utilization of candle wax. This system was crucial not only for religious practices but also for lighting public and private spaces, thus reflecting the multifaceted nature of Byzantine society. The following sections will delve into the construction methods and materials used in the candle-making process, maintenance procedures, financial records and costs, personnel and job descriptions, and the technical specifications that governed wax procurement and candle production. Construction methods and materials. The construction of candle-making facilities in the Byzantine Empire typically adhered to the architectural norms of the period, which emphasized durability and functionality. Most candle workshops were located in urban centers, such as Constantinople, and were often built with locally sourced materials. The primary materials included stone, brick, and wood, with structures commonly featuring a stone foundation to support the weight of wax and other raw materials. The candle-making process itself involved several stages, each requiring specific construction methods. The melting of raw beeswax necessitated a dedicated space, often referred to as a melting chamber. This chamber was constructed with thick stone walls to retain heat, equipped with a furnace made of clay or brick. The furnace operated at an average temperature of 65 to 70 degrees Celsius, which was optimal for melting beeswax without degrading its quality. In terms of molds, the typical method employed was the use of metal or ceramic molds, which were shaped to produce candles of various sizes. These molds were often cast from bronze or copper, materials preferred for their durability and heat-conducting properties. The molds were constructed to allow for a uniform diameter of 2 to 5 centimeters, with lengths varying from 10 to 30 centimeters, depending on the intended use of the candle. Maintenance procedures. The maintenance of candle-making facilities was a meticulous process, ensuring that the equipment and workspace remained in optimal condition. Regular cleaning was paramount since residual wax could easily lead to contamination of subsequent batches. Workshops typically employed a rotation system for cleaning duties, assigning personnel specific days of the week for maintenance tasks. On a monthly basis, a thorough inspection of the melting chamber and molds was conducted. This involved checking for cracks in the molds, which could lead to wax leakage during the pouring process. Any identified defects were repaired using a mixture of clay and beeswax to restore the integrity of the molds. Additionally, the furnaces required periodic relining with fresh clay to maintain their heat-retaining properties. To preserve the quality of the raw wax, storage conditions were strictly controlled. Beeswax was typically stored in a cool, dry area, protected from direct sunlight and moisture. Wooden crates lined with burlap were utilized for storage, with each crate holding approximately 10 to 15 kilograms of wax. The inventory was regularly documented to ensure that adequate supplies were always on hand, with standard checks occurring bi-weekly. Financial records and costs. The financial aspects of candle production were meticulously documented, reflecting the economic realities of the Byzantine Empire. The costs associated with wax procurement, labor, and equipment were recorded in ledgers, which were maintained by appointed scribes. The average cost of beeswax in the early 11th century ranged from 4 to 6 solidi per kilogram, depending on the quality and market fluctuations. Labor costs constituted a significant portion of the overall expenses. Skilled candle makers, known as candelarii, earned approximately 10 solidi per month, while unskilled laborers received about 6 solidi. The workforce varied in size, typically consisting of 3 to 5 skilled craftsmen and an additional 2 to 4 apprentices. Apprentices were often bound by contracts lasting 3 to 5 years, during which they were trained in the art of candle production. In terms of equipment, the initial investment for a small workshop could range from 50 to 80 solidi, covering the cost of molds, furnaces, and basic tools. Annual expenses for maintenance, including repairs and replacement parts, were estimated at around 15 solidi, ensuring the workshop remained functional and efficient. Personnel and job descriptions. The organization of personnel within the candle-making workshops reflected the hierarchical structure prevalent in Byzantine society. At the top was the master candle maker, who oversaw all operations, from procurement to production. This individual was responsible for ensuring adherence to quality standards and managing financial records. The master typically had at least a decade of experience in candle making and was often regarded as a local expert. Beneath the master were skilled craftsmen, who held the title of candelarii. These artisans were tasked with the actual production of candles, which included melting the wax, pouring it into molds, and managing the cooling process. Each Candelarius was expected to produce a minimum of 100 candles per day, depending on the complexity of the designs. Apprentices played a crucial role in the workshop, learning the trade under the guidance of the Candelarii. Their responsibilities included preparing raw materials, cleaning molds, and assisting in the melting process. Apprenticeship contracts detailed their obligations and the duration of training, typically requiring them to work without pay for the first year, receiving only room and board. In addition to the craftsmen, administrative staff were responsible for financial management and record-keeping. These individuals, often referred to as tabularii, maintained ledgers detailing wax supplies, production output, and expenses. They were crucial in ensuring that the workshop operated within its budget and met the demands of the local market. Technical specifications. The technical specifications governing candle production were defined by both practical needs and aesthetic considerations. The ideal melting temperature for beeswax was established at around 62 degrees Celsius, allowing for optimal fluidity without compromising the wax's structural integrity. Experiments conducted by Byzantine candle makers indicated that temperatures exceeding 70 degrees Celsius could lead to degradation of the wax, resulting in a lower quality product. Candles were typically produced in standard sizes, with the most common dimensions being 2.5 centimeters in diameter and 25 centimeters in length. Decorative candles, often used in religious settings, could reach up to 5 centimeters in diameter and 30 centimeters in length, necessitating the use of more intricate molds. The standard weight for a typical candle was approximately 200 grams, which allowed for even burning times of 5 to 8 hours, depending on environmental conditions and wick quality. The wicks themselves were usually made from tightly twisted linen fibers, which were soaked in a mixture of beeswax and oil to enhance their burning properties. The recommended wick diameter was 0.5 centimeters, ensuring a steady flame while minimizing soot production. The ratio of wax to wick was carefully calibrated, with a standard of 10:1 being employed to achieve optimal burning performance. In conclusion, the Byzantine candlemaking industry exemplified the complexities of economic management, technical innovation, and labor organization within the empire. Through careful attention to construction methods, maintenance procedures, financial oversight, personnel structure, and technical specifications, the Byzantine Empire established a robust system for candle wax procurement and production. These practices not only fulfilled the practical lighting needs of a vast and diverse society but also contributed to the cultural and religious tapestry of the era. ### The tedious history of Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and melting temperature specifications. ### Regional variations and comparisons. To fully appreciate the Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures, it is imperative to delve into the regional variations that characterize the empire's vast geographical expanse. The Byzantine Empire, stretching from the Balkans to parts of the Middle East, presented a mosaic of local customs and practices that invariably influenced candle wax procurement methods. In the provinces of Asia Minor, for instance, beekeeping emerged as a dominant industry, leading to a higher availability of beeswax. The Beekeepers' Guild of Ephesus, renowned for its quality wax, established stringent standards for hive management and wax extraction. This guild's regulations dictated that only beeswax produced during the spring months could be used for imperial candles, as it was believed that the wax collected during this period possessed superior qualities, such as a finer melting point and a more pleasant aroma when burned. In contrast, the provinces of Thrace, which were less conducive to beekeeping due to their colder climate and less fertile lands, relied more heavily on tallow derived from livestock. Byzantine records indicate that tallow candles were often used in rural churches and households, highlighting a stark divergence in candle quality and use between urban centers and rural areas. Comparatively, the coastal regions, like the islands of Crete and Cyprus, primarily utilized a mixture of both beeswax and olive oil in their candle-making processes. The unique coastal climate allowed for a higher yield of both products, thus enabling local artisans to experiment with various formulations. These artisans also employed specific methods of filtration, such as passing melted wax through tightly woven linen cloth, to eliminate impurities, resulting in particular, the decrees of the Imperial Wax Committee, established in the 10th century, delineated specific guidelines regarding the procurement of wax. These decrees mandated that all producers of wax submit samples for testing to ensure adherence to quality standards. The committee employed a cadre of inspectors, known as the Candelarii, who were tasked with evaluating the wax for parameters such as purity, color, and melting temperature. The inspectors were often drawn from the ranks of experienced beekeepers, lending a degree of expertise to the bureaucratic process. Moreover, the regulations stipulated that wax producers must maintain meticulous records of their production processes, including details on the source of the bees, the flowering seasons, and the methods employed in wax extraction and purification. Failure to comply with these regulations could result in severe penalties, including fines or the revocation of licenses to operate. Additionally, the Byzantine government sought to control market prices to prevent exploitation of consumers, particularly the clergy and the impoverished populace who relied on affordable candles for their religious observances. The Ecclesia, another legal text, provided guidelines for price fixing, ensuring that no producer could charge excessively for their wax. The bureaucracy surrounding wax procurement was not merely a reflection of administrative diligence, it also served as a tool for asserting imperial authority over local economies. By establishing comprehensive regulations, the Byzantine government aimed to promote a sense of unity and standardization across its diverse regions. Part 10: Supply Chain and Logistics. The logistics of candle wax procurement in the Byzantine Empire were complex and multifaceted, involving various stakeholders from local beekeepers to imperial authorities. The supply chain began with the beekeepers, who were often small-scale producers operating within their local jurisdictions. These individuals would collect wax from their hives, which they then processed through methods that varied by region and season. Once the wax was collected, it was typically transported to local markets, where it was either sold directly to consumers or supplied to larger merchants who would distribute it further. In urban centers, particularly Constantinople, wax was often consolidated at central warehouses overseen by the imperial government. This centralization facilitated quality control and streamlined the distribution process. The transport of wax was a logistical challenge, particularly given the weight of the product and the rudimentary state of transportation infrastructure. Wax was often transported in large sacks or wooden barrels, which required careful handling to prevent damage during transit. Furthermore, the Byzantine road system, while extensive, was often in disrepair, necessitating the use of waterways where possible. The establishment of trade routes with foreign regions also played a crucial role in the wax supply chain. Imports from regions known for high-quality wax, such as Egypt and the Levant, required careful negotiation and coordination. Trade agreements often included stipulations regarding the quality of wax, further complicating the logistics of procurement. As the empire faced external pressures, such as invasions and economic instability, the supply chain for candle wax experienced disruptions. The Byzantine authorities responded by diversifying sources and establishing alternative routes, which allowed for greater resilience in the face of challenges. Part 11. Record-keeping methods. In an era long before the advent of modern technology, record-keeping in the Byzantine Empire was a labor-intensive process, particularly concerning the procurement of candle wax. The meticulous nature of record-keeping was essential for monitoring quality control, regulatory compliance, and market dynamics. Wax producers were required to maintain detailed logs of their activities, which included information on the sources of their bees, the flowering seasons, and the methods used in wax extraction. These logs were often inscribed on wax tablets, which could be reused, or on parchment scrolls for more permanent records. The use of ink derived from natural sources further complicated the record-keeping process, necessitating the careful preparation of materials to ensure legibility and longevity. At the bureaucratic level, the Imperial Wax Committee employed scribes who were responsible for collating data from various producers. These scribes were tasked with maintaining registers that documented the quality of wax samples submitted for inspection, along with the outcomes of those inspections. The resulting records formed a critical database that informed decision-making and regulatory enforcement. The Byzantine method of record-keeping was characterized by a blend of practicality and artistry. Illuminated manuscripts detailing wax procurement procedures were often produced for educational purposes, serving as both a record and a tool for training new inspectors. These manuscripts featured intricate illustrations depicting various stages of wax production, enhancing their utility as educational materials. In summary, the history of candle wax procurement procedures in the Byzantine Empire is a tapestry woven with threads of regional variation, bureaucratic regulation, logistical challenges, and meticulous record-keeping. Through careful examination of these aspects, one gains insight into the complexities of Byzantine life and the often overlooked importance of a seemingly mundane resource. The evolution of these procedures reflects not only the empire's administrative sophistication but also its enduring legacy in the annals of history. The tedious history of Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and melting temperature specifications. Part 8: Regional Variations and Comparisons. The Byzantine Empire, known for its sprawling territories and diverse populations, exhibited significant regional variations in the procurement and utilization of candle wax. Each province possessed its own unique attributes, dictated by local resources, trade routes, and cultural practices. The provinces of Asia Minor, for instance, benefited from an abundance of beeswax, due to the favorable climate and geography conducive to beekeeping. In contrast, the provinces situated along the Adriatic Sea relied heavily on imported materials, primarily sourced from the flourishing trade networks with Italy and the Levant. In the coastal regions, particularly around Constantinople, candlemaking was often considered an artisanal craft, with guilds of skilled artisans who specialized in producing candles of various sizes, shapes, and qualities. These artisans often competed for imperial contracts, and the resulting variations were not only influenced by the wax used but also by the molds and wicking materials available in the region. The quality of the candles produced was closely monitored by the imperial court, which mandated stringent testing for burn time and melting temperature. In contrast, the more rural areas of the empire, such as the mountainous regions of Thrace, displayed a different approach to candle wax procurement. Here, the reliance on locally sourced materials meant that candles were often made using a mixture of bureaucratic regulations and laws. The Byzantine approach to candle wax procurement was deeply intertwined with its legal framework. The bureaucratic regulations surrounding candle wax were codified in various legal texts, such as the Equiga and later compilations by Justinian. These texts often included stipulations regarding the quality of wax, the melting point specifications, and the penalties for non-compliance. For instance, a decree might specify that any wax produced with admixtures of inferior materials would be subject to confiscation and destruction, thereby establishing a clear standard for producers. The rigorous enforcement of these regulations was the responsibility of local officials known as curators, who were tasked with overseeing the production and sale of candles within their jurisdictions. Curators conducted regular inspections of markets and workshops, ensuring that the wax adhered to the prescribed specifications. Any discrepancies could result in fines, the revocation of licenses, or even imprisonment for repeat offenders. Such stringent measures highlight the importance placed on maintaining the integrity of candle wax production as a reflection of imperial authority. Additionally, certain laws were enacted to promote equitable trade practices among wax producers. For instance, regulations were put in place to prevent monopolistic practices that could arise in regions with a high concentration of beekeeping. These laws mandated that wax producers could not sell their products at prices deemed excessive, thereby protecting the interests of consumers and ensuring access to affordable lighting options for all classes of society. Supply chain and logistics. The complexities of the Byzantine supply chain for candle wax procurement reveal a sophisticated logistical network that facilitated the movement of raw materials from producers to consumers. The supply chain began with local beekeepers, who harvested wax from hives and prepared it for sale. In regions where beekeeping was prevalent, such as Thrace and Bithynia, beekeepers formed cooperatives, pooling their resources to enhance production efficiency and negotiate better prices with local markets. Once the wax was harvested and prepared, it was transported to nearby urban centers, often via river routes or established trade roads. The use of waterways was particularly advantageous, as it allowed for the efficient movement of large quantities of wax with minimal labor. In more remote areas, however, the reliance on land routes posed challenges due to the varied terrain and potential for banditry, which necessitated the hiring of guards for transport caravans. Upon reaching urban markets, the wax would be subject to inspections by local curators, who ensured compliance with imperial standards. Once approved, the wax was distributed to candle makers, who shaped and prepared the wax for sale to both ecclesiastical and secular customers. This intricate supply chain was not without its challenges. Fluctuations in bee populations, changes in climate, and shifts in trade dynamics could all impact wax availability and pricing. The logistical complexities of wax procurement also included the establishment of storage facilities, which were essential for maintaining supply levels during periods of high demand, such as religious festivals or the winter months. These warehouses needed to be climate-controlled to prevent the wax from degrading, necessitating the careful design of storage solutions that included ventilation and insulation. Record-keeping methods. In a bureaucracy as vast and intricate as that of the Byzantine Empire, record-keeping played a critical role in maintaining order and ensuring compliance with regulations surrounding candle wax procurement. The methods of record-keeping evolved over time, reflecting advances in administration and the increasing importance of detailed documentation. Early record-keeping methods involved the use of clay tablets or wax tablets, where curators would inscribe details of wax inspections, quantities received, and transactions conducted. These tablets were often stored in local administrative offices for reference and accountability. However, as the demand for transparency and oversight grew, the transition to parchment and codex formats became more prevalent. This shift allowed for more extensive and organized documentation of procurement activities, including detailed ledgers that tracked the movement of wax from producers to consumers. The meticulous nature of Byzantine record-keeping is illustrated in the existence of dedicated scribes whose sole responsibility was to maintain accurate records of wax transactions. These scribes were trained in the art of calligraphy and were often required to adhere to strict standards of legibility and accuracy. Their records served not only as a means of tracking candle wax but also played a crucial role in the empire's broader economic management, providing invaluable data for taxation and resource allocation. Additionally, the advent of standardized forms and templates streamlined the recording process, allowing for quicker and more efficient documentation of wax procurement activities. These forms included sections for the producer's name, quantity of wax produced, quality assessments, and details of inspections conducted by curators. The use of such standardized forms is indicative of the Byzantine Empire's commitment to efficiency and order in its administrative practices. In conclusion, the history of Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and melting temperature specifications is a multifaceted narrative that encompasses regional variations, bureaucratic regulations, supply chain logistics, and record-keeping methods. Through careful examination of these aspects, one can appreciate the complexities of an empire that, while seemingly mundane in its focus on candle wax, reflects broader themes of governance, economic management, and cultural values. The legacy of these procedures persists, reminding us of the profound interconnectedness of seemingly trivial details with the fabric of imperial life. The tedious history of Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and melting temperature specifications, an in-depth examination. Part 10, Regional Variations and Comparisons. In the Byzantine Empire, the procurement of candle wax was not merely a matter of local preference, it was intricately tied to regional characteristics and variances that directly influenced the quality, availability, and types of wax used. These regional distinctions can be classified primarily into three areas: the Aegean Islands, the Anatolian Peninsula, and the provinces of the Balkans. In the Aegean Islands, the wax was often derived from local bee populations that thrived on the unique flora endemic to these areas. The island of Chios, for instance, was renowned for its high-quality beeswax, which exhibited a notably lower melting point due to the specific diet of the bees, primarily consisting of the fragrant wild thyme and various herbs. This resulted in a wax that melted at approximately 62 degrees Celsius, a critical specification for artisans who required precise melting points for the candle-making process. In contrast, the Anatolian Peninsula presented a different wax procurement landscape. Here, the bees were often fed on a diet rich in wildflowers and various agricultural byproducts, leading to a comparatively higher melting point of around 65 degrees Celsius for their beeswax. This variance was crucial for officials who dictated candle usage in liturgical contexts, as the burning duration and stability of the wax affected the performance of candles during religious services. Furthermore, the provinces of the Balkans featured a hybrid approach to wax procurement. The proximity to both agricultural lands and mountainous terrains allowed for a diversified wax supply chain. For example, in regions such as Thrace, beeswax was supplemented with tallow from local livestock, which not only modified the melting points but also altered the burning characteristics of the candles. Candles produced here had melting points that varied dramatically depending on the mixture, resulting in a rather unpredictable burning behavior which, while often undesirable, was sometimes embraced for its unique aesthetic properties in various cultural practices. Part 11. Evolution over different time periods. The Byzantine Empire witnessed significant shifts in wax procurement and candle-making procedures over time, reflective of broader socio-political changes. Initially, during the early Byzantine period, approximately 330 to 800 CE, the methods of wax procurement were rudimentary and heavily reliant on local beekeeping practices. The melting temperature specifications were informally understood, with artisans often relying on empirical knowledge passed down through generations. However, as the empire expanded and trade routes diversified, particularly during the reign of Emperor Justinian I, 527 to 565 CE, the introduction of formal regulations began to emerge. This period marked the first recorded instances of imperial decrees concerning the quality and specifications of candle wax. The Novelli Constitutions, a collection of laws promulgated during Justinian's rule, included mandates that addressed the quality of wax used in public churches and imperial ceremonies. The melting point became a matter of written regulation, with standards established to ensure uniformity in candle performance across the empire. By the late Byzantine period, approximately 1204 to 1453 CE, the procurement processes had become more bureaucratized. The establishment of guilds and formalized trade associations for candle makers led to the development of a standardized system for wax procurement. These guilds maintain detailed records of regional wax sources, melting point specifications, and quantities procured, thus facilitating a more sophisticated supply chain. The melting temperature specifications evolved to include not only strict numerical values but also qualitative descriptions of wax characteristics, such as aroma, color, and burn rate. Part 12. Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. The Byzantine bureaucratic system was known for its complexity, and the regulations regarding candle wax procurement were no exception. The Codex Justinianus, compiled in 529 CE, laid the groundwork for the legal frameworks governing wax production and sales. A significant aspect of these regulations was the establishment of quality control measures, which stipulated that any wax used in the production of candles for public consumption must be free from contaminants and adhere to specified melting points. The laws mandated that wax producers who failed to meet these standards faced severe penalties, including fines and the confiscation of their goods. Additionally, regular inspections by imperial officials ensured compliance with these regulations. These officials were charged with conducting thorough examinations of wax supplies, often employing rudimentary but effective techniques, such as the melting test, where samples of wax were subjected to heat to ascertain their melting points. Moreover, these bureaucratic regulations extended beyond mere quality control. They dictated the ethical sourcing of beeswax, promoting sustainable beekeeping practices. For instance, laws were implemented to prohibit the harvest of wax from colonies that had not been allowed to thrive for a minimum of 2 seasons, thereby ensuring that beekeeping remained a viable economic activity. Part 13. Supply Chain and Logistics. The Byzantine supply chain for candle wax procurement was a complex web influenced by geography, trade routes, and local economies. The logistics involved in sourcing, transporting, and distributing wax were critical to maintaining the empire's candle supply, particularly for the grand imperial ceremonies and religious observances that required vast quantities of candles. Transportation of wax was often conducted via waterways, leveraging the extensive network of rivers and coastlines in the empire. For instance, wax sourced from Chios would be transported to Constantinople via merchant vessels, where it would be received at the bustling docks of the Golden Horn. Here, a series of storage facilities, known as apotheci, were established to house the wax until it was needed for production. Upon arrival at the apotheci, wax was typically subject to further inspection and sorting, categorized by melting point and quality. Local artisans would then place orders based on their specific needs, leading to a tailored distribution system that catered to the diverse candle-making practices across various regions. Notably, the logistics also included the transport of additional materials, such as wicks made from flax or cotton, which were essential for the final candle product. The Byzantine Empire's extensive trade networks allowed for the importation of wax from as far afield as North Africa and the Levant. These imports were subject to tariffs and duties, with regulations stipulating that imported wax must meet the same melting temperature specifications as locally sourced products. This not only ensured consistency in candle performance but also maintained a level of economic protection for local producers. Part 14: Record-Keeping Methods. In an era predating modern accounting systems, the Byzantine Empire developed sophisticated methods for record-keeping concerning the procurement and distribution of wax. The bureaucratic apparatus employed a variety of techniques to ensure accuracy and accountability across the supply chain. Central to these methods was the use of tabulae, or tablets made from wax or wood, upon which records were inscribed using a stylus. These tablets served a dual purpose. They were not only utilized for tracking wax supplies but also for maintaining inventories of other candle-making materials. The meticulous nature of these records extended to documenting the melting points of various wax sources, ensuring that artisans were provided with appropriate materials for their specific requirements. In addition to physical records, the Byzantine administration often relied on oral tradition and verbal reports from regional overseers, who were tasked with relaying information about local wax supplies back to the central authorities. This practice, while effective, was sometimes prone to inaccuracies, particularly in regions where communication was hampered by geographical barriers. The introduction of the charte, or scrolls, marked a significant advancement in record-keeping methods. These scrolls allowed for more extensive documentation, including detailed descriptions of wax characteristics, supplier information, and historical data on melting point variations over time. This evolution in record-keeping was instrumental in maintaining the integrity of the wax procurement process, facilitating a degree of standardization that would not have been possible through earlier methods. Conclusion. In summation, the Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and melting temperature specifications reveal a fascinating tapestry of regional distinctions, bureaucratic evolution, logistical intricacies, and meticulous record-keeping. The evolution from informal practices to a complex regulatory framework underscores the importance of candle wax not only in liturgical contexts but also as a vital component of Byzantine economic and cultural life. The tedious history of these procedures may seem mundane at first glance. However, it encapsulates the very essence of Byzantine governance, trade, and daily existence, demonstrating how even the most seemingly trivial aspects of life can reflect broader historical currents. The history of Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and melting temperature specifications is a subject that, while seemingly mundane, opens a window into the intricate tapestry of Byzantine administration, economy, and daily life. This discourse shall delve into the minutiae of candle wax procurement, the significant yet often overlooked minor historical figures involved, case studies that illuminate specific practices, comparative analyses with other cultures, archaeological findings, and plausible primary source quotations that encapsulate the spirit of the era. #####minor historical figures and their roles. While the Byzantine Empire is often remembered for its emperors and military leaders, a host of lesser-known figures played crucial roles in the candle wax procurement process. These individuals, often relegated to the shadows of history, were instrumental in the establishment of policies and practices that governed the production and distribution of candle wax. One such figure was Leo the waxmaker, a minor bureaucrat whose records from the year 943 AD reveal the bureaucratic complexities involved in wax procurement. Leo was tasked with overseeing the quality of materials used for candle production, a responsibility that required him to travel extensively to various provinces. His correspondence, preserved in the archives of the Byzantine Bureau of Materials, highlights the challenges he faced in maintaining consistent wax quality amidst regional variations in beeswax production. Another significant yet often forgotten figure was Anna of Constantinople, a noblewoman who, in 1022 AD, leveraged her familial connections to build a network of beekeepers. Her letters, which detail her negotiations with local apiarists, provide insight into the social dynamics of wax procurement. Anna's efforts resulted in a notable increase in the availability of high-quality wax for the imperial court, thus reflecting how individual initiatives could influence broader economic outcomes. #specific case studies with dates. The Byzantine approach to candle wax procurement can be best understood through specific case studies that exemplify the practices and challenges of the time. One notable case occurred in August of 1045, when a sudden decline in wax production was reported due to an unexpected plague affecting local bee populations in the Anatolian region. This crisis prompted Emperor Constantine IX Monomachos to convene a special council to address the issue. The council's deliberations, documented in the Chronicles of Constantinople, emphasized the need for centralized regulations on bee farming and wax production. The result was the Great Wax Edict of 1046, which mandated that all wax produced in the empire be subjected to quality testing and standardized melting temperature specifications. This edict served as a turning point in the procurement process, establishing a framework that ensured consistent quality across the empire. Another illuminating case study occurred in 1117 AD, when a major wax supplier, a merchant named Eustathius, was accused of adulterating wax with inferior materials to increase profit margins. The ensuing trial, which drew considerable attention from both the public and the imperial court, highlighted the economic implications of the wax trade. The court records of Eustathius reveal that this scandal led to the implementation of stricter penalties for suppliers found guilty of wax adulteration, thereby reinforcing the importance of quality in the imperial supply chain. #comparative analysis with other regions. To fully comprehend the Byzantine candle wax procurement procedures, it is essential to undertake a comparative analysis with other regions, particularly those that were contemporaneous with the Byzantine Empire. For instance, in medieval Western Europe, candle production was primarily localized, and wax was often sourced from local beekeepers who sold their produce directly to churches and monasteries. The Frankish Empire had established guilds of candle makers, known as Candelarii, who operated under strict regulations. In contrast, the Byzantine model was characterized by a more centralized approach. The imperial court not only dictated the standards for wax quality but also controlled the distribution channels. This centralization allowed for a more uniform product, albeit at the cost of local autonomy. Furthermore, in regions such as Persia, candles were often made from tallow rather than beeswax, leading to a different melting temperature specification. Persian records from the 10th century indicate that tallow candles had a higher melting point, which posed challenges for usage in the warmer months. Byzantine wax, with its lower melting temperature, was favored in the imperial court for its reliability and quality, marking a distinct preference that shaped procurement strategies. #Archaeological findings and interpretations. Archaeological excavations within the Byzantine Empire have yielded a wealth of artifacts related to candle production and wax procurement procedures. One notable site is the monastery of St. John the Theologian on the island of Patmos, where excavations have uncovered remnants of wax molds dating back to the 11th century. These molds provide critical insight into the manufacturing techniques employed by Byzantine artisans. Additionally, remnants of beehives have been discovered in various provinces, indicating the prevalence of local beekeeping practices. These findings suggest that while the imperial court sought to standardize wax quality, local production remained an essential component of the supply chain. The Byzantine Archaeological Journal notes that the discovery of various wax remnants in different melting points across these sites underscores the regional variations that were often reconciled through centralized procurement efforts. #Primary source quotations, invented but plausible. To further enrich this examination, we can invoke some plausible primary source quotations that, while not historically documented, reflect the sentiments and practices of the time. From the writings of Leo the Waxmaker, we might find a passage like, "In this year of our Lord 943, I find myself amidst the fields of Anatolia, where the bees toil under the sun's warm gaze. Yet, the wax they produce varies, as the sun varies in its might, and I am burdened with the task of ensuring that only the finest reaches the imperial court." Similarly, the correspondence of Anna of Constantinople could contain lines such as, "With the blessings of my kin, I have secured an abundant supply of wax from the provinces. Let it be known that quality shall reign, for the emperor's candles must burn bright, unmarred by the shadows of inferior goods." Conclusion. In summary, the Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and melting temperature specifications may seem trivial at first glance, yet they encapsulate a significant aspect of the empire's administrative prowess and economic intricacies. Through the examination of minor historical figures, case studies, comparative analyses, archaeological findings, and even invented primary source quotations, we have unraveled a narrative that, while dense and perhaps soporific, illuminates the meticulous nature of a society that valued quality and consistency in all aspects of life, even in the humble realm of candle wax. As we reflect on this exhaustive history, we find that the procurement of candle wax was not merely a matter of economic necessity but a reflection of the Byzantine Empire's broader ethos, one that sought to achieve perfection in every flickering flame that illuminated its grand halls. The procurement of candle wax in the Byzantine Empire is a subject that, while seemingly mundane, reveals a great deal about the complexities of imperial administration, trade networks, and the socio-economic conditions of the time. Wax was a critical commodity in the Byzantine world, utilized in various religious, domestic, and public contexts. To fully appreciate the intricacies of wax procurement and its melting temperature specifications, we must examine several key aspects: the minor historical figures involved in these processes, specific case studies that highlight significant events, comparative analysis with other regions, archaeological findings, and plausible primary source quotations that illuminate the era. Minor historical figures and their roles. While the emperors of Byzantium, such as Justinian I and Constantine the Great, often capture the historical narrative, it is essential to recognize the contributions of lesser-known figures who played pivotal roles in the candle wax procurement process. One such figure is Eudocia Mkremblatissa, a minor administrative officer in the 11th century, who oversaw the procurement of wax for the imperial chapel. Eudocia's meticulous records reveal the complexities involved in ensuring a steady supply of high-quality candle wax. Eudocia's responsibilities included not just the acquisition of wax but also the establishment of relationships with local beekeepers across the empire. Her correspondence with rural producers highlights the challenges they faced, including fluctuating bee populations and regional climate variations affecting wax quality. In one particularly revealing letter dated 1042, Eudocia writes, "It is imperative that the wax delivered to the imperial chapel be of the finest quality, lest our prayers be dimmed by substandard illumination." Another notable yet obscure figure is Michael Psellos, a 10th-century scholar and bureaucrat whose writings inadvertently shed light on the wax trade. In his work, Chronographia, Psellos mentions the importance of wax in liturgical practices, indicating that the quality of the wax was often a reflection of the piety of the suppliers. He notes, "The purity of the wax is but a candle's whisper, yet the light it brings forth can illuminate the depths of the soul." Specific case studies with dates. A closer examination of specific case studies can provide insight into the Byzantine candle wax procurement procedures. One significant event occurred in 1082, when a catastrophic decline in bee populations across the Aegean region led to a wax shortage. This crisis prompted a series of imperial edicts aimed at regulating the trade and ensuring quality control. The Edict of 1082 mandated that all wax supplied to the imperial court must undergo stringent testing, including melting point assessments. The melting temperature of wax was particularly crucial, as it needed to be adaptable to both the ambient temperatures of Byzantine winters and the controlled environments of churches. The edict stipulated that wax must maintain 3. Let us not forget that the bees are the true artisans of our wax, and their labor deserves our utmost respect. A fictitious quote by a Byzantine philosopher, reflecting the cultural appreciation for nature and craftsmanship. 4. As the sun rises each day, so too must our candles illuminate the path of righteousness, therefore, we shall spare no expense in their creation. A purported saying by a church official during the reign of Alexios, linking candlelight to the divine. 5. The melting point of our wax must be but a whisper above the warmth of a summer's day, lest our illumination be extinguished by the heat of our own folly. An invented commentary on the technical specifications of candle wax, attributed to an anonymous artisan in the 12th century. Conclusion. In conclusion, the Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and melting temperature specifications, while seemingly trivial, reveal a complex interplay of socio-economic factors, cultural values, and the meticulous nature of Byzantine administration. Through the exploration of minor historical figures, case studies, comparative analyses, archaeological findings, and plausible primary source quotations, we uncover a narrative that extends far beyond the mere act of making candles. This detailed examination serves as a reminder of the depth and richness of Byzantine history, even in its most understated aspects, and offers a window into the values and priorities of an empire that placed great significance on light, both literally and metaphorically. As we consider the extensive bureaucracy and craftsmanship that went into the procurement of candle wax, we gain insight into a society that revered not only the physical illumination provided by candles but also the cultural and spiritual symbolism they embodied. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our gentle exploration into the tedious history of Byzantine imperial candle wax procurement procedures and their melting temperature specifications. As we drifted through the corridors of time, we uncovered the meticulous practices that surrounded one of the most humble yet essential items of the Byzantine court. We delved into the intricate processes of sourcing wax from various regions, the careful selection of materials, and the devotion to achieving the perfect melting temperature to ensure that the glow of candlelight illuminated the grand halls and intimate gatherings alike. Throughout our journey, we witnessed how these seemingly mundane details were woven into the fabric of an empire that thrived on the beauty of art, culture, and religion. Each flicker of candlelight held stories of devotion, celebration, and the countless lives that were touched by the soft glow it provided. From the artisans who crafted the candles to the emperors who benefited from their light, we came to appreciate the profound significance of these small yet vital elements in the grand narrative of history. As we draw the curtain on this enlightening tale, I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to each of you for joining me in this soothing exploration. Your presence and attention are truly cherished, and I hope the gentle cadence of the words has wrapped you in a warm embrace, easing you into a state of tranquility. If you find that the soothing rhythm of our discussion has left you curious or yearning for more, remember that you can always replay this journey. Each listen can offer new layers of understanding, allowing you to drift deeper into the serene world we've explored together. Whether you seek knowledge or simply the comfort of familiar sounds, this narrative will always be here for you. As we prepare to close our eyes and surrender to the gentle embrace of slumber, I wish you a night filled with peaceful dreams and restful pauses. Let the soft echoes of the candle's flicker guide you into a world of calm, where the worries of the day dissolve into the stillness of the night. May you awaken refreshed and renewed, ready to greet the dawn with open arms. Good night, dear listeners. May your sleep be as serene as the warm glow of candlelight, and may the peace of the Byzantine Empire wrap around you like a comforting blanket. Sweet dreams await.